Welcome back into College Football Every Game on the Board podcast, week number 7, episode number 2, with our two-hole hitter, Matt Josephs from ESPN Richmond. Follow him on Twitter at MidMajor Matt. Matt, welcome on in, bud. How you feeling?
Feeling good. We are now 3-3 on best bets. UMass went under the 17.5 last week. Got nervous. They moved up and down the field the first drive, but only got a field goal, and then they resorted to being UMass, and we won that one rather easily. So looking to move to 4-3 on the best bets.
Yeah, going on a nice little run here. I know the listeners will love it. And guys, if you're new to Every Game on the Board, we are hitting every single game on the FBS college football slate each and every week, right here, wherever you download your podcasts at, on YouTube as well, and Twitter, Every Game on the Board. All right, we're starting off 139, 140, Clemson and Boston College. And then we're hitting, about 20 games here, Matt? So let's start off 7:30 Eastern, Clemson, BC, ACC matchup. We are seeing the Tigers -2 touchdown road favorites, 55 being the total. Clemson, BC, first game up.
So the question is, was last week a mirage for Clemson, or are we kind of getting back to what we expected from Clemson? Good defense, really good offense. I mean, obviously we have very low opinions on North Carolina, so it all depends on how you thought that win meant with regards to the rest of the season. You know, Boston College is interesting. Chestnut Hill is always a quote-unquote tough place to play because the crowd is interesting there. Half the time they don't know what's going on. Half the time they don't even care what's going on. But, you know, this is a Boston College team that certainly can make things interesting. The defense didn't show up. They lost 48-7 last week. I'm a little, as I say usually on these podcasts, I'm a little leery to lay the 14 with anybody. Certainly with a team like Clemson, who, you know, has been bad for the most part this season outside of the UNC win. So this is probably a game I'm going to pass. Maybe I would look, if you believe in that Clemson defense, the team total is 20.5 for Boston College. Maybe they'd stay under that. But that's only if you believe this Clemson defense, who showed up last week, is going to do so once again this week.
I like your breakdown of Chestnut Hill. Have you ever been there, Matt?
I mean, I looked at Boston College when I was looking at college many years ago, so I'm somewhat familiar with the area. But, like, you know, it's one of those atmospheres that, like, they get into it, don't get me wrong, but it's not like this fierce place. It's just a random road trip that some teams make in the ACC, and if the spot's wrong, then you struggle there.
We got another ACC matchup up next. This one, 12 noon Eastern. We're heading to Tallahassee for Pitt at FSU. FSU here, I'm seeing kind of a split line, anywhere from 9.5. That's at Hard Rock in the state of Florida, or mostly in the state of Florida, all the way to as high as -10 and a hook here. That's Florida State as the home favorite, 58 being the total. Pitt on the road in Tallahassee.
So, I mean, this is all about where's Florida State's head at. They lose the Virginia game. Okay, somewhat understandable. Virginia's a good team this year. It was a short week. The Miami game was next. But then you lose the game at home to Miami. So that's 2 straight losses for Florida State. Now the conference championship is a little bit harder to get to with so many undefeated teams atop the standings. So if you think Florida State's going to show up, you're probably going to take Florida State here because you think they'll bounce back after the Miami game. They're 2-3 against the spread the last 5 after Miami games. So that's a bad trend. And I kind of like this Pittsburgh team, although now you have a true freshman quarterback who was really good last week. 4 touchdown passes, over 300 yards. Granted, that was against Boston College. Desmond Reed is expected back for Pittsburgh in this one. Plus, the Panthers are really good. Number 1 run defense in the country, allowing 1.72 yards per carry. There is wind that comes into play here. Wind gusts 10 to 15, maybe up as high as 20 miles per hour for this game. So I don't know yet if I'm going to play this, but I lean to Pittsburgh plus that 10.5. I just feel like Florida State's mindset for this game is going to be a little questionable in my mind. The worry is the true freshman quarterback heading the road to play in Tallahassee. But, like, where's Florida State's head at after 2 tough losses in conference?
Yeah, sure. And it's an early kick there in Tallahassee. So something to watch. You bring up the weather as well. That is something that could be a component with a few of these games this weekend, guys. So make sure to be checking the weather. We got next one up, 143, 144, all 3:30 Eastern kick. Virginia Tech and Georgia Tech. This is on Saturday. Usually it seems like this series, Matt, you would know it better than me, is on a Thursday night. But either way, we're heading to Bobby Dodd Stadium. And the Yellow Jackets, -14 and a hook, pretty much across the board here, 55 being the total. Hokies heading to the ATL here and taking on the Yellow Jackets. What are you thinking in Midtown Atlanta?
I don't know. I feel like last week kind of pop the bubble for Virginia Tech with regards to like the bowl and which regards to like all the momentum for the rest of the season. Because, they win the game against the FCS opponent after the coach gets fired. Great. Wonderful. They go to Raleigh and win at NC State. Now you're like, well, wait a second. Maybe Virginia Tech is back. Maybe they're going to be really good this year. Maybe the coaching change was all they needed. And then they lose to Wake Forest, which I needed for my Wake Forest season win total, which was great. But Wake Forest is not a good team. It was their first road game of the year. Their offense isn't as good as it looked on Saturday. So now I wonder where Virginia Tech's head is at. They have not had as many transfers out of the program as I thought they would. It's only 4 or 5 right now so far. So it means maybe the guys are still buying in a little bit, but you got Georgia Tech off a bye week. They have the worst run defense in the ACC, but Terrion Stewart, the Bowling Green transfer, he is questionable for this game for Virginia Tech, and he was really good in that NC State game. So I wonder if the Hokies have kind of checked out for the rest of the season. I almost feel like this is a game Georgia Tech kind of runs away with. They are playing at Duke next week, and that's a huge game, but I kind of think Georgia Tech off a bye is going to play really well in this situation. They lost to Virginia Tech last year in Blacksburg 21-6. I kind of like Georgia Tech here in this situation.
Yeah, a little bounce back, revenge from last season. Good start here in the ACC. We'll head to the Big Ten for the next two. We get Iowa and Wisconsin. Hawkeyes -3, road favorites 36. Yes, 36 being the total. Iowa at Wisconsin here in Camp Randall.
Yeah, I mean, this is getting back to what we're used to with Iowa. 36s is what we're used to. And it's interesting. Iowa's coming off the bye week, but we still don't know about Mark Gronowski. There are 3 different quarterbacks who could play for Iowa. And the thing is, and the backups aren't very good. And Gronowski hasn't had that great of a season. They're also potentially going to be without 2 of their running backs. Although Xavier Williams could return after missing the last few games. They're going to be without a linebacker, Jaden Harrell. He's important for that defense. So this is an Iowa team that's not very healthy. On the other side, you've got a Wisconsin team that scored the early touchdown against Michigan and then did nothing. This is a Wisconsin offense that I can't trust to do anything for me the rest of the season. So you see the 36 here. Now, we talked about in the past the touchdowns market versus the team total market. And we've talked about how sometimes you can take advantage of it in one way. Well, this is the other way. If you like Iowa's team total under potentially, which is 19.5, the touchdowns market is 2.5. So you're basically saying, all right, I need 2 touchdowns versus 3 touchdowns. If you don't think they're going to get the 3 touchdowns, then you potentially look at the under there for Iowa. Whereas 19.5, that's, there's some points and some wiggle room there. I'm not touching this game. I need to know more about Iowa's quarterback situation. We probably won't by Saturday, but I'm not backing this team without Mark Gronowski out there. And I'm certainly not backing Wisconsin because their offense is brutal.
All right, Matt, if you had $100 free bet, if you win, you get 200. If you lose, you don't lose anything. 36 as the total. Would you bet it over or under?
I mean, I'd probably go under. I don't know what I'm getting from Iowa. I don't know what I'm getting from Wisconsin. Although this is one of those games where a special teams touchdown pushes it over. I mean, it's just that's the problem with last year. This game was 42-10. Iowa scored 42 points on Wisconsin. I don't know, Iowa's offense couldn't score 42 points against a normal football team nowadays. And last year they put up 42 in Wisconsin. So revenge could be in play here, but I can't trust Wisconsin's offense to do anything for me.
Next, Big Ten, back-to-back Big Ten games here. UCLA at Michigan State. Very interesting handicap here, Matt. First off, I mean, it's a 12 noon Eastern kick, so that's 9 a.m. for UCLA. We get 55.5 being the total. Michigan State -8 and a hook at home. UCLA off of the biggest upset, maybe of the season. I'm not sure on that, but either way, it's East Lansing here. Tricky handicap. What do you think in UCLA, Michigan State?
I mean, I think a lot of people say, "I'll just take Michigan State." I can't lay 8.5 points with Michigan State. Aiden Childs can be one of the best quarterbacks in America or one of the worst quarterbacks. There's no middle. It feels like when he's on, he is a very good quarterback. The problem is when he's off, he's throwing interceptions, he's fumbling, taking sacks. The question is on the UCLA side, where's their head at? As you said, long flight, early start time, off an upset win. Everybody's giving them their flowers and everything, talking about how great the program is, and rightfully so. Jerry Neuheisel is being interviewed all over the place with his dad broadcasting the game. So all this attention to this program. The wild card here is like Nico played really well last game against Penn State, and Nico can play really well. So like UCLA can go to Michigan State and win this game if the right Nico shows up. But if they're distracted and if they're playing like it's an early start time, I don't know. I feel like I lean to Michigan State here. Maybe I don't think I can play anything here because I'm trying to guess what UCLA is going to act like after a huge win, and I'm trying to guess to see if Nico can have his second straight really good game for the Bruins here.
Is Neuheisel really calling the game?
Well, no, last week he did.
Oh,
last week his dad called the game against Penn State, so there was the emotional moment in the booth watching his son be the offensive coordinator and all that stuff. And look, UCLA could certainly win this game because if Nico plays really well, Michigan State's secondary is brutal. But like early start time, off a huge win, back home next week, there's a chance they fall flat in their face in this situation as well.
Are you a fan of the Neuheisels? I mean, it's kind of a cool story, but I mean, you're in the broadcast world. I don't know.
I mean, I guess I think it would be interesting if I was broadcasting a game and my son was doing something. That would be great. I don't have a son. I don't have any kids right now. But like, if I was to broadcast something of my children, that would be pretty emotional watching them win a game like that.
Yeah, it was funny to hear him talk about it. It was the first time he's calling plays and, just turning on the headset, things of that nature. But now he's going to have to do it on the road. They are catching 8.5. All right, next one up, 7 o'clock Eastern time. We got a little Sunbelt action. UL Monroe at Coastal Carolina. We are seeing the Warhawks -2.5 point road favorites, 44.5 being the total. So the Warhawks heading to Coastal Carolina here to take on the Chanticleers, 7 o'clock Eastern kick.
So I don't remember if ULM was a favorite at UTEP, but if they weren't, it's been a long time since they've been a road favorite. Like, this is a program that traditionally has been one of the worst in the country. And Brian Vincent's doing some tremendous things. I really like what Brian Vincent has done there. I think he's a really good coach. I think if he does this another year, he won't be at ULM. He'll be at someplace else. You're getting them at a decent value considering they lost 42-7 to Northwestern last week. My thing here is I can't trust Coastal. Coastal's offense is brutal. Other than they scored 38 points against South Alabama, I mean, they've done anything else. They scored 7 against Virginia, 7 against ODU. They scored 13 against their FCS opponents. So, I don't think Coastal's going to do very much. But how is ULM going to handle this being a road favorite situation? There may not be much of a crowd there. Rain and wind in the forecast. That's going to ugly things up a little bit. I trust ULM's run game a little bit more than Coastal. So, slightly into the road team, but with the rain and the wind, that kind of equalizes things a little bit for both teams. And considering Coastal can't do much offensively as it is, the weather forecast is not going to do anything to them because they already can't do offense.
Matt, I'm seeing, no, they were catching 5.5 against UTEP, the closing number. They were favored by 1.5 against Arkansas State, but that game was at home. I can't go back far enough to find the last time they were favored on the road.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I was looking in my Phil Steele, the last 5 years, they have not been a favorite on the road. They've been monster underdogs pretty much every single time. So it's a situation they're not used to. They are the better team here. And in sunny skies and perfect weather, I'd probably take them. The rain and the wind just kind of equalizes things a little bit. Wet ball, fumble, interception. Coastal could take it like 13-7. Maybe the under comes into play here. Maybe wait until closer to Saturday to make sure that is the forecast. But as of now, as we do this on Wednesday, rain and wind in the forecast could be an equalizer.
Sure, and I agree with you on Brian Vincent. He had some success. What is the OC at South Alabama, I remember, and then here at UL Monroe. So, good call on that. We got Maction up for the next couple games. Miami of Ohio and Akron. We are seeing Miami O -11 point road favorites, 45 being the total. Early kick here, 12 noon Eastern, Miami O at the Zips.
Once again, rain and wind possible for this game, so that could certainly be interesting. Miami of Ohio, this is a team that didn't bring back almost anybody from last year. It felt like they do not have a lot of returning starters, but they got Daquan Finn from Toledo to be their quarterback, and they were down 14-0 to Northern Illinois and then scored 28 straight points and won that game 28-14. We know they'll bring the defense here. Akron got to feel good after the win over Central Michigan. Once again, and I think this is going to be my best bet. I'll confirm it once we get to the end. Akron under 17.5 team total here. Miami, Ohio's defense, a lot better than Central Michigan's defense. The weather probably will make things a little bit more difficult here. You will have to buy the point, so you'll have to pay a little bit of juice to do it. But Akron, I just don't see how they're going to score a lot of points. Miami, Ohio defense is very legit this season.
Staying in the MAC, we got Toledo into Bowling Green, also 12 noon Eastern here. The Rockets minus 10.5 to as high as minus 11.5, depending where you're shopping. We got 3 MAC games in a row. The middle one here, 50 being the total. So Toledo laying doubles at Bowling Green.
Yeah, this is your thing. The battle of I-75 here for this game. On Saturday.
I love it.
We love our rivalry games. And last year, Bowling Green went to Toledo and won this game outright. So, Toledo will want this one. Both teams coming off a bye week. I did find it interesting. I believe I read Eddie George is having the T's crossed out on any building that is at Bowling Green for this week, much like how Ohio State crosses out all the M's for Michigan week. He's really embracing the rivalry here. If Bowling Green hadn't won last year, I probably would look at them again. And that's where I'm probably leaning in this game anyway. The Pine experience, Drew Pine experience has not been great for Bowling Green. I mean, they brought him over and he's been all over the place. He's had some good games. He's had some bad games. He's hard to trust. And of course, we know the usual players at Toledo. Junior Vandeross, great wide receiver. Chip Trainum, the running back they brought over from Kentucky. Tucker Gleason at quarterback. Like we know Toledo's going to bring the offense, and their secondary is really good. But as I said, I can't lay 10.5. I do wish Bowling Green hadn't won last year. I might have taken them this year plus the points. I'll tell you this. If Toledo somehow loses this game, next week they host Kent State, and they'll put up 90 on Kent State if they lose this game. So just keep that on your radar, that if they lose to Bowling Green this week, they will take out a lot of frustrations on Kent State next week.
Yeah, I like that look ahead. And you bring up Eddie George. You always got an opinion that I respect in terms of coaches. He kind of took the same route that Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, did. I believe they actually didn't like each other when they were playing against each other. What's your overall read on Eddie George? Are you looking to be betting on his teams or just week to week?
I think he's okay so far. I don't think he's done anything bad. I don't think he's done anything great. I think he's gotten poor quarterback play, and it doesn't matter who your coach is if you can't get good quarterback play. So I think he's fine. I don't think he's doing good enough to be on anybody's radar so he can leave, and I don't think he's doing bad enough that they're thinking of firing him a la North Carolina. I mean, I haven't seen any statements from Bowling Green's Twitter account saying everything is okay, look the other way. But I think he's just okay so far, and we'll see how he does in his first rivalry game. And I think that, people judge you a lot on how you do in the rivalry game. And if he wins, people will love him. If he loses, depending how he loses, people will dislike him more.
All right, Matt, we get what last of 3 here in the MAC, 1:00 Eastern kick. We are talking Northern Illinois and Eastern Michigan. We are seeing Northern Illinois -1 and a hook, 46 being the total.
So, I mean, it's very important here. If Eastern Michigan's the favorite, we run away. If Eastern Michigan is the underdog, we are interested. Rain could be in the forecast for this game. Look, the 2 statistics that we brought up last week for Eastern Michigan, and one of the wins I had last week was Eastern Michigan plus the points. Thank goodness Buffalo won, but Eastern Michigan covered. Was Eastern Michigan's now 20 for 20 in the red zone. I mean, that's pretty good. You can't do much better than 100% in the red zone. So, if you're betting on Eastern Michigan, you're getting an offense that will pay off red zone trips with points, whether it's field goals or touchdowns. The other thing is still only 3 turnovers. They're one of the only teams in the country who has not lost a fumble this season. And so you're getting an Eastern Michigan team that takes care of the ball too. And then you got a Northern Illinois team that the quarterback play has just been so bad. It's just been so bad. There's not a lot of answers there. This is an offense that just can't get going very much. And it's a defense that's very good, but constantly on the field. As we said, they were up 14-0 against Miami, and then Miami of Ohio scored the rest of the points in that game. So I lean to Eastern Michigan here. If you're going to give me a team that's going to pay off red zone trips with points and is not going to turn the ball over against an offense that can't do anything, look, Eastern Michigan's defense is not good at all. But I can't. I'm going to go with Eastern Michigan at home. Underdog in this situation. I think they get the win outright.
Yeah, catching 1.5 here. Heading to the Big 12 conference up next, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 local time. In Lubbock, a big one in the Big 12 here, Matt. Kansas at Texas Tech. We're seeing the Red Raiders mostly minus 14. There is 14 and a hook out there, 59 being the total. Kansas, Texas Tech here from Lubbock, Saturday night.
So once again, we have one of our situations that we've talked about. Texas Tech, the team total is 37.5. The touchdowns market is 4.5. So once again, if you like Texas Tech, you think they're going to score a lot of points like I do, you might want to look at the over 4.5 touchdowns as opposed to the over 37.5 points. I know it's 3 points difference, but 3 points in the end could make a difference there. I think Texas Tech wins this game. I think Texas Tech might as well punch their ticket for the conference championship game. Like I think this Texas Tech team's really good. I mean, they brought back, I think I remember 21 starters from last year, 11 on offense and 10 on defense, or the other way around. And obviously they filled the holes with players that they've paid a lot of money to, which I have no problem with. I think this Kansas team's okay, but I don't think their defense is good at all. I think Kansas is going to struggle to stop Texas Tech. So I would look potentially at that over 4.5 touchdowns. I also think Jalen Daniels could have a decent game. I just don't think Kansas is going to run. So Jalen Daniels is going to be very busy for Kansas. So maybe you look at like a touchdowns over passing for him. I just don't know how Kansas is going to do as a one-dimensional offense against this defense. I think Texas Tech could do whatever they want here. The one thing to watch as we get closer, wins could be an issue, and that would kind of make me a little less interested in all the totals because, if they're heavy wins, you've got them with you for 2 quarters, and you've got to go against them for 2 quarters. So watch the forecast for this one as we get closer.
Yeah, I mean, that happens a lot in Lubbock. It's not only the tortilla throwing, it's there in West Texas. They get wins. And I almost think that's even more of a home field advantage for the Red Raiders. I've heard coaches like Cliff Kingsbury in the past say he really only recruits quarterbacks that have that zip on the football with a really good spiral that kind of cuts through the wind a little bit more. That's something I look to be betting on Texas Tech at home. The problem is I think Kansas is pretty good. I mean, their roster and a very good coach in Lance Leopold, I think this is a tough trip for him. And I agree with what you're talking about with Texas Tech, looking towards the Big 12 championship game. I think they're going to be there. I think they're going to win this conference. You have any interest in any futures with Texas Tech, not only for the Big 12 conference, but maybe national championship at a nice plus price?
I think I would consider it. Now I'm not going to do it. I'll wait till Saturday. You want to make sure Morton doesn't get hurt or any of their other players. But they're probably not going to beat SEC teams, but I think they're going to be there. And certainly, I don't know if any book offers this to make the Final Four or to make the championship game. I would certainly consider Texas Tech because I don't think 2 SEC teams or 2 Big Ten teams will make it. I think you've got a chance to find something here with Texas Tech, but I don't think any books offer to make the championship game. But yeah, if they come out of this weekend injury free, I mean, if you look at the rest of their schedule, there's just not a lot of challenges left. And if they win their conference, they're going to get a decent seed in the tournament. And then, you may not play your tough game until the semifinals or the championship.
Yeah. And part of the thing I'm looking ahead is if they run the table, they're likely going to get a bye. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to be the 1 seed, but the 3 or the 4 seed also get a bye. So you get one step closer. I don't know, just throwing it out there, guys, in terms of if you're a futures better. 3:30 Eastern for the next one, heading back to the MAC, Ball State in Western Michigan. We are seeing the Broncos minus 9.5 at home, 43 being the total. So low total, near double-digit favorite. They are at home, Western Michigan hosting Ball State.
So I lost on the over in the Ball State-Ohio game. I was stunned that Ohio did, and both teams played better defense than I thought they would. I kind of like this Ball State team right now. I think Ball State is doing some stuff. Their offense is very run-based with Ashley in the backfield when he's healthy and Kyle Kelly at quarterback. But they're starting to throw the ball a little bit. The last 2 games, they've had more first downs and more yards than their opponent. First time that's happened. This is a crazy stat. First time they've had more first downs and more yards than their opponent in consecutive games since 2023. So last year, that never happened. I like this Ball State team a little bit. And look, Western Michigan last week did what we needed to in the game against UMass, but I don't think their defense is all that great. I especially if this thing gets to 10, I would potentially be very interested in Ball State in this situation. I think they're playing with confidence. I think they're playing with some momentum. I understand it's on the road. But last year when Ball State was really bad, this was a 45-42 game. Now, I don't expect that to happen once again, but I definitely think Ball State could be on my card on Saturday. I think they're playing with some momentum right now.
Heading to the SEC up next, 12 noon Eastern, 11 local time, I believe. Alabama and Missouri. We are seeing the Crimson Tide -3 now at a lot of shops. It opened 4. We're still seeing some 3.5s, but 3 seems to be the consensus number, 51.5. I don't know, Matt. This number is looking a little short on Alabama. I might bite here, but interested in your opinion. Crimson Tide at the Tigers. Yep.
So you're the SEC guy, but for me, when I look at this game, the spot couldn't be any worse for Alabama. It feels like, you've got an Alabama team coming off the game against Georgia, coming off the revenge angle against Vanderbilt, 2 straight emotional games, ranked opponents. They got Tennessee next week at home. That's a huge game for both of them. And then you've got Missouri, who's coming off a bye week. And before the bye week, they played UMass. So they've essentially had 2 weeks of byes. Like, this is a team that should be very fresh and very ready. Now, my question is, I don't love Missouri's quarterback play. I don't love Bo Pribula. I think he's been okay. He's got good numbers so far. But, like, against who? Outside of that Kansas game, and I guess South Carolina, depending upon what you think of them, they beat Central Arkansas, Louisiana, and UMass. So, like, this is their first real challenge of the season. Granted, it's home. It's crazy that their first 6 games are all at home so far this season. But spot-wise, it's a terrible spot for Alabama because they've got to be a little beat up. Ryan Williams appeared on the participation report. Granted, he was listed as probable, and it seems like he's going to play. One of the other wide receivers is questionable for this game. So, based on the spot alone, as a non-SEC expert, but like a guy who looks at spots, I would think Missouri's the play here, not Alabama. But I'll defer to you here, who watches this and knows a little bit more about this conference.
No, that's a great point. I mean, schedule spot, that's, I would say, a big point in why this number is moving towards Missouri. But at the same time, sometimes it comes down to the Jimmies and Joes on the field. That's why I was saying at some point, maybe it is a buy on Alabama. But great breakdown there, Matt. We got 12:45 Eastern for the next one, SEC Network. Ole Miss hosting Washington State, 58 being the total, -32 and a hook, -33. That is the Rebels at home in Oxford.
So I feel like Lane Kiffin's been apologizing a lot for not covering. I mean, I just feel like Lane is due for one of those games where he pulls a James Franklin and gets a late touchdown in the cover here. Washington State's not very good. The one thing that you kind of getting, at least in the positive side of things, is they're coming off a bye week, 2 weeks to prepare for this game. They're playing an independent schedule. They'd want to upset Ole Miss because they have nothing really to play for. Although I did find it funny. Lane Kiffin said this is number 1 in the SEC versus number 1 in the Pac-12. Obviously, the Pac-12 is just 2 teams. So, like, it doesn't really matter. And then you look at the Ole Miss side of things and you see, oh, gosh, they're coming off a bye week. So they've had 2 weeks to prepare. Trinidad Chambliss has been tremendous. I'm stunned at this, Drew. And you could tell me that he's the first SEC quarterback in 30 years to have 300 yards passing and 50 yards rushing in 3 consecutive games. That's crazy that in 30 years, considering, Cam Newton and considering Tebow and all these other guys that have been there, he's the first to do it. The one thing that's interesting here is Ole Miss is at Georgia next week. So certainly that could change things a little bit later on in the game. I feel like if you're isolating Ole Miss here, you go first half. I think they take care of business in the first half, maybe even the third quarter if you can find a bet there. But then, like, the fourth quarter, maybe Washington State scores some points. Maybe Ole Miss, let some things happen here. But that at Georgia next week, Lane Kiffin's not going to keep his guys out there longer than he has to with such a huge game next week.
Yeah, the look ahead. Great point there in terms of laying the number. We heading to Mile High up next. Iowa State at Colorado, Boulder, Colorado to be exact. -2 and a hook. That is the Cyclones as the road favorite. There is a 3 out there. 52 being the total. Good one in the Big 12, 3:30 Eastern, Iowa State at Colorado.
Yeah, I don't. So obviously, I hope Deion gets out of his procedure okay. He's been dealing. I think he's dealing with blood clots and everything. But he says he's gonna coach this game. It's been a rough season for him health wise. Hopefully, everything turns out okay. I think Coach Prime is great for college football, and I want him to succeed certainly. So on that side of thing, like how much obviously he trusts his assistants, but how much is Coach Prime helping out with the game plans and everything? It's still a tough place to play. Colorado, Iowa State coming off the loss at Cincinnati, so second straight road game for Iowa State. They could be without Carson Hansen, their running back. He had a concussion last game. We're also looking at the kicker situation. Kyle Conradi is not going to play in this game, so we're looking at the second or third string kicker once again for Iowa State. That certainly changes things in terms of, will they go for it on fourth down more? Will they kind of be a little bit more aggressive? The other statistic I found, since 2016, Iowa State is 29-15-1 against the spread following a loss. Matt Campbell's done a great job of trying to cut down the losing skids here. I don't know if I trust Iowa State in this situation. My lean probably would be to there, but of course it is a tough road game. I don't think I'm going to be able to play anything here. Maybe the over. I mean, Colorado's defense isn't great, and Iowa State's defense can be had. We saw that last week against Cincinnati. If Caden Salter plays well for Colorado, they could be able to put up some points. So maybe I would look at two vulnerable defenses in the over in this situation.
Nice stats there. 29-15 against the spread off of a loss for Iowa State.
29-15-1 for under Matt Campbell since after a loss.
Like that. Looking towards the Cyclones there. We got two late night actions up next. Good one in the Big 12. Arizona State at Utah, 10:15 Eastern time. -5 and a hook. That is the Utes as the home favorite. 48 being the total in Salt Lake.
So, I mean, you know where I kind of lean always when it comes to Utah, and you know how much I love Kyle Whittingham. Obviously, it didn't work out against Texas Tech, and I'm hoping that Utah can still make the championship game against Texas Tech and see them once again. I've got a preseason wager on Utah to make the conference championship game. Both teams coming off a bye week. Utah has the Holy War next week. They are at BYU, but they coming off a bye week. I don't think they're going to be looking ahead. The thing that will complicate things here is rain is definitely in the forecast. Could be some heavy rain and some wind. And so certainly that means you want the team that can run the ball better and is better in the trenches. And I think Utah is better in the trenches in that case. I like Dampier in this situation. I think Utah's running backs are better than Arizona State's running backs. Cam Scadaboo is not coming through that tunnel. So Arizona State is going to struggle a little bit to move the ball here, but this one's not one you have to wait for the forecast. There will be rain and there will be wind, and I think that's going to help Utah at home against Arizona State in this situation.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now because, this time of year, particularly in the elevation is Salt Lake. I was thinking maybe it would be cold as well, but it doesn't look to be. Mid-60s. But yes, rain and wind. Good point there, Matt. We got next one, also late night, 9:45 Eastern time, New Mexico and Boise State. We're seeing Boise -16.5, home favorites, 60 being the total on the blue turf.
So in theory, Boise should roll here. I mean, I'm not a New Mexico guy. They lost 35-28 at San Jose State. Boise should roll here, but it's an interesting sandwich spot. Boise State coming off the loss to Notre Dame, which means the G5 playoff berth is definitely not theirs. Even if they win the Mountain West, I think the Sun Belt champion, whether it's ODU or JMU, will be ahead of them. And obviously the 5 teams in the AAC are all ahead of Boise State. So losing to Notre Dame pretty much it means that they're not going to get the G5 playoff berth unless there's mass chaos in front of them. They also have the home game against UNLV next week, who is obviously the class of the conference right now. UNLV is playing some great football. So I'm expecting Boise to play better here. I think Boise should roll in this situation. If there's any sort of hangover against Notre Dame, maybe it takes a quarter, maybe it takes a couple drives for it to kick in. But I don't think New Mexico can keep up with Boise. And if Boise starts focused, then I think they roll in this game.
Primetime matchup in the Big Ten is Michigan heads on the road to the Coliseum to take on USC. 4:30 Pacific kick, -2 and a hook. That is the Trojans as the home favorite, 58 being the total, Matt.
Yeah, this is an interesting game because, you obviously have two of the powers of college football playing here in Michigan and USC. Michigan won this game 27-24 last year, and the reason why they won this game last year was because they were able to push around USC. USC still had a lot of guys that were ready for the Pac-12. They weren't ready necessarily for this conference, which is a lot tougher. Michigan's secondary, fully healthy now. They've been playing a lot of the season with a bunch of guys hurt. Moore at safety was hurt. Everybody's back, so that's really good for them. I found this stat, which was interesting. In 2024, last year, conference teams that traveled multiple time zones went 6-22. That's in the Big Ten. And Sharon Moore said they were going to fly out Friday after class to get out there, Thursday. They were going to fly out Thursday to get out there and get their body clocks ready for the game a little bit early and everything. See, I don't necessarily completely buy into the whole East Coast to West Coast thing, only because it feels like unless you're playing a really late game, like you're going to be up at that time anyway. It's just a 3-hour difference. Like, it's different at like Vegas when you go out to Vegas, but like, I don't think it's going to be much of an issue for Michigan, or at least I wouldn't think so. USC's coming off the bye week. They play at Notre Dame next week, but they'll certainly be focused. Of course, you add the thing that says that Sharon Moore came out and said the only reason why USC is sold out this game is because Michigan fans have decided to show up. Of course, Lincoln Riley came out and defended the USC crowd, so that's always interesting. On the field here, I kind of lean a little bit to USC here. Michigan's offense still is just not good enough right now. I don't think they're doing enough. I don't think they're creative enough right now. I think USC obviously has the weapons to take advantage of some things here. Could be a little bit of a lower scoring game, although I'm not going to play the total here, but my lean is to USC here. I just don't trust this Michigan offense outside their building because it just doesn't seem like at times they're creative enough.
And Matt, I mean, I think the travel spot is important, but like the time of kickoff, it affects my handicap when it's west to east in an early kick, not so much east team traveling west for a later kick with college kids. Does that make sense for you?
Yeah, of course. College kids are up late. Like, let's be honest. I mean, college kids are up late studying. Obviously, they're hitting the books hard in their dorm rooms. They're not doing anything else that they shouldn't be. But I just feel like, if you're telling me like what the UCLA Michigan State thing with UCLA coming over, and I don't know, Washington is going to Michigan next week. I don't know what time that game is going to be, but like I'd be a little bit more worried with Washington playing a noon start time in Michigan than Michigan playing a 7:00 start time in Washington.
Right. Yeah. Makes total sense. As we got next one up here, BYU and Arizona. Only 2 games left here on this segment. We'll bring in Robbie Vino to finish off every game on the board. You're listening to Matt Joseph's ESPN Richmond at Mid-Major Matt on Twitter. BYU, Arizona, 8:00 Eastern kick here. 47 and a hook being the total, -1.5. That is the Cougars is the short road favorite.
So I lean to Arizona here. Both teams have some potentially interesting defensive players out. Linebacker Jack Kelly for BYU, defensive end Trey Smith for Arizona. We mentioned it earlier. BYU's got the Holy War coming up at home against Utah. They're coming off of a win against West Virginia. So I'd be a little bit more concerned about the spot for BYU since they played last week. And Arizona's a good team. Arizona found their confidence against Oklahoma State last week. Fafita had a good game. Obviously they took advantage of a really bad Oklahoma State here. I think Arizona's defense is legit. I kind of lean to Arizona in this situation at home. They lost 41-19 to BYU, one of Fafita's worst games in a long time last year. I think they can get some revenge here, and I like them as the slight home underdog in this situation.
We got Ed in on Twitter asking about Louisiana Tech. I'll ask Matt about that, but we got one game left here. Troy, Texas State. The last game we're talking, we'll get a best bet out of Matt as well. Any questions from Twitter or YouTube as well, guys? Fire away. We got Texas State, Texas State, the Bobcats -8 and a hook at home, 54 being the total in San Marcos.
So this is so Troy is a team that it feels really good after the overtime win over South Alabama. Texas State is a great September team, a great August team. They are 3-6 in their last 9 October games. I don't know what it is. Nobody can, a lot of the articles I was reading about the Texas State football team and their October issues, nobody seems to know why they seem to struggle in this month. It's not so much the offense. The offense is scoring a lot of points. They lost 31-30 last week. The defense let them down against Arkansas State. I'm mad at myself because I wanted to play Arkansas State, and then I talked myself out of it, and they won it outright last week. Texas State won this game by 21. I don't think Troy can keep up in a shootout here. So the only chance Troy has is in a lower scoring game. Obviously, the 54.5 doesn't tell you it's going to be a lower scoring game. So I lean to Texas State here, but their October issues have spanned the last couple of years. And so that's something to certainly watch out for.
Matt, before we get to best bet, Ed in the on the Twitter is saying, Matt's slate. It's not on his slate, but how do you feel about Louisiana Tech? That game being tonight at Kennesaw State. I like the Bulldogs. I think Louisiana Tech is going to win Conference USA. I think they're a pretty good team. Not that Kennesaw State isn't. They've gotten better as well. I like La Tech. How do you feel about that game?
I don't love laying that many points on the road. I mean, Kennesaw State has won 3 straight. They're playing better at home. Obviously Merrimack, Arkansas State, Middle Tennessee State, not exactly a tough set of teams, but like, I just feel like this is a Kennesaw State team that just enjoys being home. You've got extra time. Kennesaw State plays a weird offense, so I think that's going to help that Louisiana Tech has had a little bit of extra time to prepare for this thing. Could be a little bit of a lower scoring game too. I really like this Louisiana Tech defense. Obviously, the fact that it's on a Thursday night kind of makes it a little bit more interesting. So maybe this is a lower scoring game tonight. I lean to Louisiana Tech to win. Maybe slight lean to Kennesaw State to cover.
Matt, got something for you here from Oven Fresh. Drew, love the content you provide college football, but I got to say, you and mid-major Matt look like a couple Hanson brothers from the movie Slapshot. Hanson brothers. Hey there, Matt.
It's a good movie, Slapshot. Hockey officially getting underway this week, so that's I think that's a compliment. I will take that. I don't think I have the weird enough glasses or the thick enough glasses to be one of the Hanson brothers. If I remember correctly, one of them has the really thick rims to their glasses, but I do appreciate the compliment, if it was a compliment.
Yeah, Aaron, thanks for chiming in as well, man, and thanks for listening. We do understand people out there at work, so yeah, Matt, great stuff as always. Matt Josephs, ESPN Richmond. Matt, what do we got for best bets?
All right, so I'm going to give you one best bet and then something else to watch for because it's not out yet. We're going to go with the same situation as last week. I'm going under 17.5 points for Akron. You're going to have to spend a little bit of juice on it because it's 16.5 in most places, but you can get a decent juice on the 17.5. Much like last week, Akron looked really good against Central Michigan. That's great. But now I'm asking them to go and play a legitimate offense in a weather situation, rain and wind. I just don't think they're going to be able to do it here. So I'm willing to. And some people, last week I put my card out and everybody's like, well, wow, you're swallowing a lot of juice here. And the reason why, especially for touchdowns or for team totals, is you want to get that key number. I'm looking right now. It's minus 150 on DraftKings. I understand that's a lot. Some of you may not want to do that. That's fine. But you are now getting the nice, neat situation of 2 touchdowns and a field goal still being an under. Whereas if you took under 16.5, you now a field goal pushes it over the 16.5. So really, if you want to take the under 16.5, great. I'm giving out the 17.5. You have to be willing to pay the little bit of extra juice. The other thing I'm going to throw out there, and we can't bet player props here in the state of Virginia, but if you go to your favorite prop shop, I'm sure you'll see where it's coming. Anthony Colandrea of Virginia is going up against Air Force. And this is a bet I'm going to give out every game the rest of the season. Air Force can't stop anybody through the air. Horvath for Navy last week threw for over 300 yards. I don't know if he's thrown for over 300 yards in the span of 2 games, more so 1 game. You look at Colandrea so far this season, Colandrea has had multiple passing touchdowns in 3 of his 5 games. One of them he didn't was the FCS game. That's always a weird game. And the other one was the Wyoming game. And of course, it's, Wyoming's pass defense is okay, but Air Force can't stop anybody through the air. So especially if a book puts out over 1.5 passing touchdowns for Anthony Colandrea, you got to take the over. Air Force is a team that every week, the rest of the season, as even Army, I'm going to look at the quarterbacks passing over on the touchdowns and the yards potentially because they can't stop anybody through the air. And I watched Hawaii move the ball up and down the field on them. I watched Navy move the ball up and down the field on them. So every week we're going to mention it just to remind everybody. But this week when it comes out, look at over 1.5 passing touchdowns for Anthony Colandrea. I think he's going to have a lot of success through the air against Air Force.
I like where your head's at. I'll throw out another team that moved the ball on them, Utah State. I watched every play of that game. I'll tell you, we're going to break down this game. It's on Robbie Vino's slate, but just looking at the numbers, I kind of like UNLV minus 6.5 as well, Matt. I don't love going up against the military academies, but being at home, fast track there in Las Vegas, I think UNLV I think they win by more than 2 touchdowns. Any thoughts on that?
Well, so their team total touchdowns on DraftKings is 4.5 at -140, which I think is reasonable. I think they could very easily score 5 touchdowns, and it goes along with what you're saying. Like, I think Air Force is going to score because, triple option's always tough to prepare for. There's always those plays where the guy breaks away, 75-yard touchdown run, and Air Force's offense has been great. And I think the more Air Force scores, that means the more UNLV is going to score. The question is, is Air Force taking 10 minutes off the clock or 12 seconds off the clock on one of those breakaway plays? But yeah, I like where your head's at, but if I play anything, and I think I am, over 4.5 touchdowns for UNLV here is something I'm going to be looking at because I just think they're going to score a lot of points.
I do too, but you bring up the point, if they're taking 8-9 minutes off the clock each drive, that just shortens the game, makes it tough to lay a number. But yeah, I think it's setting up well for the running Rebels. Matt, man, great stuff as always. I know the chat box loves it on Twitter as well. Follow him on Twitter at MidMajor Matt. Matt, what else you got going on? Obviously, the every game on the board here on Thursdays, but where else can people find what you're talking about out there in the sports betting world?
So I do a podcast with Ariel Epstein on Mondays and Fridays, Prop Queen Sports. Certainly, so that's something you can check out. We talk about all the props and certainly some college football and the NFL as well. I have my radio show here in Richmond from 3 until 4. I do a JMU show from 6 until 7 on Wednesdays. I'm actually heading up to JMU on Saturday to watch them play Louisiana, so that'll be a lot of fun. It's a noon start time next week. Hopefully, my slate includes JMU and ODU, which could be one of the largest G5 games of the season. If not, we'll definitely talk about it. But yeah, I try and do as much as I can. I post all my plays. I post it in the Action Network app so you can check them all out. And that way nobody can question my record or anything like that. But yeah, at MidMajor Matt, any questions on any random games? Certainly. I'm a guy, I play a lot more team totals and touchdowns in like the odder markets than just straight up spreads and totals. I think there's a better, I think the markets there are easier to take advantage of potentially. You don't have to worry about one side of the game. You can just focus on the offense versus the defense in one game, and that's why I play those things. So certainly I like to look things a little bit differently than Rob or Jeff Nadeau does.
And you bring up JMU going to the game. Are you sweating anything out? It's a big number. I think JMU blows them out, though.
I think JMU wins like 31-13. I think that's the score I gave out on the show this week on Talkin' Dukes, which you can find on our website, espnrichmond.com. I think they played terribly down in Georgia and down in Atlanta because it was an odd situation. You're playing in a baseball stadium. Georgia State's really bad. It was a 14-7 victory. Their offense is so much better at home. They're going to work some things out. And I think maybe towards the end they give up some points, maybe because, next week's the huge ODU game and it's homecoming for JMU. So next week should be a huge matchup for the Dukes as they take on the Monarchs.
Matt Josephs at MidMajor Matt. Best bet Akron under team total 17 and a hook with some juice. Matt, anything else before we shut this down?
Yes, I think we're far enough into the season now where you can start noticing trends. I'm slightly interested tonight. Georgia Southern's one of the worst, actually has the worst rushing defense in America. I would look every week at the running back to score a touchdown. The last 3 weeks, the quarterback has scored a touchdown. So Braylon Braxton could score a touchdown tonight for Southern Miss. We have enough data points now that you can start honing in on specific things and fading it week after week after week, like how we used to take the Toledo team total every week and how we took the Minnesota first quarter unders for most weeks and things like that. We now have enough data points that you can certainly start isolating things and fading it week after week after week and continuing to make a profit on it.
The trend is your friend in sports betting. Thanks to Matt Josephs at MidMajor Matt. Check out his show, ESPN Richmond, from 3 to 4. He's also got the JMU show. Matt, great stuff as always, man. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk next week.
Sounds good.
Guys, thanks for tuning in. We'll be right back with Robbie Vino and the rest of the Every Game on the Board podcast. Cash those tickets.